Hi, everyone. This is Amy's Knit Lab, and my name is Aimée Gilles, and I am the founder and creative director of La Aimée. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This place has always been a place where I talk about yarn. In the past, I've hosted knit nights around my book Worsted, and now I'm starting a new conversation series with the designers from Neons and Neutrals. Today we have Valerie Ng and Caitlyn Turowski with us, and their special guests of two test knitters who will be joining us a little bit later. We will be digging in and talking to each of the designers and getting to know them and talking about the designs from Neons and Neutrals. But before that, I want to introduce Julia here. So this is Julia Taylor. She works with me here at La Aimée.
Hi, everyone.
She is my communications assistant. And yeah, I mean, a jack of all trades, honestly. Julie does a lot around here. And we also knit together. So Julia, let's talk about our knitting today because we're knitting the same thing.
Yes, we are.
So
we are knitting a little bandana.
Yes, I'm making a little bandana pattern that's going to be released very soon. So by the time this episode airs, so this is a pre-recorded episode, the pattern will be released. And we're working on making it in all kinds of different styles.
Yes.
I'm currently working on a kind of a fade version. I'm in the middle of a row right here, so it's a little awkward to show, but you can kind of see. And I'm fading through marling, which is super fun. And Julia, what are you doing on yours?
I made my very first experimentation with intarsia, which turned out so much easier than I thought. So I just did a few little shapes here, but I'm on the second side here, and I'm thinking I'm gonna do like a massive triangle of fluoro marganite, like a massive shape of fluoro on the other side.
I think that's going to look awesome. I can't wait to see. So we kind of landed on a name for this pattern this week. We were walking around. I kept calling it the knitted bandana. I wanted to call it something with bandana. And then was it you or was it Amanda that came up with the idea?
Well, I came up with an idea that didn't work, which was the LBA Dana or El Bandana or something. And Amanda, my colleague who's sitting right next to me, was like, no, Julia, that doesn't work. It should be Le Bandana.
So that's going to be the name of the pattern. It'll be called Le Bandana, and it'll be available on Ravelry and hopefully maybe on our website. We just still need to figure that out. We're still in the process of getting everything online.
Right now, we're just knitting 20 different versions of it.
And I'm sure in the next episode, we'll show another version because in the previous episode, I was knitting on a different version. So that just goes to show how fun and quick these are to knit. So I would like to get started, and I would like to bring forward two of the designers from Neons and Neutrals. Here is Valerie Ng and Caitlyn Turowski. Hi.
Hello.
Hi and welcome. And I'm super excited to have you both so that we can have this really fun conversation about Neons and Neutrals. I think I got a little bit excited because Caitlyn, I'm sorry, I'm going to push you back with the test knitters so that we can focus on Valerie for the questions. But we're going to bring you forward and say hi. So everybody wave. All right. Hi, Valerie. How are you doing?
Hi, Aimée. Actually, I'm a bit under the weather today, but I hope you can still hear me loud and clear, and my energy level isn't that high. Usually I am one of those ADHDers who are, just really excited about everything. But today I'm a bit more calm, so to speak. Might actually be a good thing. So, and I hope you're doing well. So it has been a while since we last met. So
we're doing really well, and we won't keep you for very long. So I just wanted to dig in and give an opportunity to our audience to get to know you a little bit. Could you please introduce yourself, tell us where you're based, and maybe a bit about your background?
I think most people honestly are interested in my surname more than me. That's usually the case. Most people look at my surname and either ask, is that it? Is that an initial, or is there something behind it? Or are you from Vietnam? So I think this might be a good opportunity to just let us explain the surname a little bit. It's part of me.
Yeah.
in Hong Kong, it's actually a Chinese surname. So in Hong Kong, where people speak Cantonese, it could be Angie. So it could be Ng. But if you're in Singapore, we all know or it's a little difficult to pronounce, right? So people would also do Ng or So you just add a vowel to it. So it makes it a little bit easier to, well, imagine during COVID time, during COVID times, it was just impossible to tell people what my surname was, just under the face mask. So I'm happy if people just skip my surname. I mean, Vaelrie, it's fine.
Okay.
It's
the
easiest for everybody. So, but yeah, if people are wondering, it's just a Chinese surname that it's with a Cantonese sort of pronunciation, Romanized. And if you're in China, for example, then it will be Wu. So it will sound completely different, but it will still be the same.
Oh, I had no idea. Where are you based?
I'm coming to you today from Amersfoort in Holland. So about 34 or so minutes by train from Amsterdam, not that far. I relocated, so to speak, to Holland from Hong Kong 7 to 8 years ago, just to live behind a very different life. In my previous life, I was actually a music educator. So I used to teach musical instruments, and I never called myself a musician because I was really more like an educator. So I focused primarily and mainly on giving lessons and teaching and organizing concerts for students. But at my peak, I used to play more than 7 or 8 orchestral instruments. So it was a very, very different life. And nowadays, I'm trying to get my master's thesis done. And it's in, I'm doing it here in Holland, and it's in a topic related to people of color, like how they were represented in Dutch art. So it's a Dutch art history master's. A little bit more special, I guess, and unexpected for a lot of people. So that might be interesting to know.
I love that. I'm really fascinated. That's amazing.
And there's a very interesting turn in how they got into the, how they are not related to knitting at all. So yeah.
So tell us how you got into knitting. What is your knitting story?
So before I came here, it was actually like 7, 8 years ago. I quit my music job in Hong Kong. I was probably very depressed, or what we would call here in the West, having a burnout. Obviously, 7, 8 years ago, especially in Hong Kong, in such a busy city, nobody would have heard of a word such like the burnout. Nobody would know what that was. And but I was really struggling for quite some time, and I thought, okay, enough is enough. We need a break and we need a change. And I thought, well, I can do a study somewhere. So I quit the job, getting stuff, ready, selling things, and, be prepared to just move to another country by myself. And I thought, okay, finally I have some time. Well, what should we do with the extra time sitting in a small apartment in Hong Kong? You only get 30 meters square. That's not very cool. There's not much to do. And so I thought, okay, maybe I could knit my boyfriend at the time something. Then I started Googling. I learned how to knit at school when I was doing home economics in secondary schools. It's a 12-year-old kid. I learned how to sew also during home economics lessons. Very old school, Catholic school, yeah, and a girls' school. So I already knew how to knit. Okay. At the time, I thought, okay, getting into knitting might be fun, and it really helped me. Gave me a lot of satisfaction. When you can finish something, or you can actually make something, or prove to yourself that you can do a certain skill. Yeah. That really helped me with that sort of a burnout situation and the depression. And after I moved to Holland, obviously, I met a lot of friends via knitting, which is great. People, when they see you. When you're doing something that is exactly what they're doing, they're more open to talking to you instead of, it could be very difficult.
Yeah, to meet people.
Exactly. Especially when they see a different face. Of course, we have a lot of Asian faces or people from other countries here, very international metropolitan cities here we have. But I think, sometimes people are just very hesitant to come to you and talk to you. But if you see that you're knitting, then it could be an icebreaker on its own. So
yeah,
I think lovely.
That's really special about knitting. It's like this open door to just acknowledge each other. And sometimes you don't even have to talk. Sometimes I'll be knitting on public transportation. Someone will see me and they'll just like It's like the knitter's wave or something from far away and things like that.
Aimée, you remember I texted you the other night. I was going home from work. I was sitting down in the tram knitting, and this girl sat right in front of me, took out her knitting, started knitting. We didn't talk. We just looked at each other, smiled at each other, and just got on with our knitting.
Yeah, I love that acknowledgement that happens. When you were living, so you were knitting when you were living in Asia?
For a couple of months, yes.
Oh, okay, because I was going to ask if you saw knitting in public in Asia.
Not really that much at the time. I think it might be a bit better now, because I know there are several shops that, opened in the last couple of years. But it's definitely not the thing. People are very busy, and it's not really about, okay, should I be crafting in public? It's just more about people don't know how to do it, and they don't have the resources. And even, for example, my grandmothers, they don't knit. My mother didn't knit, so it's not like it's something that you do with your aunts and uncles or your family members or grandmothers. No, it's just of course depending on the family, but I believe a lot of us just don't have that luxury.
I understand. So tell us a little bit about your general design process. Like if you're we'll talk a little bit about specifically your design, from Neons and Neutrals, but in general, if you're going to start a knitting project or a knitting design, what's your process?
I think I start usually with the technique that I really want to use, or a stitch pattern that I want to sort of tweak a little bit. Let's say if I want to add a color, let's say to the herringbone stitch, then I will start from there. Or if I just want to do a very simple color work, let's say a double knitted pair of mittens, for example, then I'll think about, what colors do I want? Do I want something very, what kind of patterning do I want? Like something that from there, and then I'll get into, with that sort of technique that I'm using, and with that kind of a stitch pattern, what kind of a construction would work well with them. So I would like to really get the construction and the shape and everything to work with the material, the colors, the fibers, and the stitch patterns. Sometimes you get a very flexible fabric, sometimes you get a very stiff fabric. You can't just be using the exact same. Let's say I can't be doing a circular yoke with let's say something that is a very stiff. It's never gonna drape around your shoulders. So I think from that perspective, instead of, I know some people, they do, be inspired by the cities, by the scenery, and I'm not really per se that kind of person. I'm really more technical and methodical person. So I think I like to approach things or designs or even just a simple, even a sewing project from that perspective. Like, what technique do I want to use, the fiber, the material, and what will work with it, and start from there. And if I see a brief, let's say your call for submission brief, and then I'll say, oh, is there something that I can maybe submit or similar, relevant?
Right.
Do I like that? Do I like the colors on the mood board? Then obviously that will then get into the design and be developed into the final project.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's dig in a little bit about your project, your design, for Neons and Neutrals. I remember when the submission came in, I was immediately taken by the sketch that you had made. You had a very clear idea. Some of the submissions we came in were kind of conceptual, but yours was very clear. And I knew in my mind, I had already put in the back of my head a vest. I needed a vest in this collection. And when I saw yours, it was like, bing, it just came together and it was perfect. Then Julie and I dug in deeper and we started reading it, and we were looking at the technique, and you used something called stranded herringbone stitch. But before we talk about this, because I know you're going to go into depth and explain this to you, can you tell us what was exactly your inspiration for you, and what does you mean?
So I think the inspiration, like I said, I'm not really the scenery or cityscape inspired person. So I was looking at your mood board, and your brief at the time was to mix different bases. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. And I was really moved by the fact that you even said, okay, you could even use yarn from other yarn companies, because that's not something that is common when you see some, a yarn company or somebody is trying to create a collection. They usually want you to use one set of yarn because it's easier to manage and to get the project going. So I was really inspired by that, and I must thank my knitting soulmate Natalia. She is Fiber Creative on Instagram. She, a long time ago, the two of us really are very much into, sort of zigzaggy patterns and this sort of chevron looking patterns. Mm-hmm. So a long time ago, we were playing around with just, knitting two together, this sort of a herringbone stitch, which is a very traditional one color herringbone stitch. And she was trying to maybe make something a swatch, and she was just showing me like how, if you do a row in this color, the other row in that color, then you get stripy effect. But I'm not really a stripy kind of person, so I thought, okay, I have to do it sort of like more vertically. And then, by alternating the yarn, then you get to actually have a zigzag pattern that is sort of vertical zigzag. Yes. So it's still a herringbone stitch. I'm really into stitches that do not look like knitted stitches. So I like to knit stitches that do not look knitted, and I like to weave stitches that are that don't look woven, if that makes sense. I just don't want my knitted fabric to look woven, and the other.
I love that. That is so cool, the way you look at the stitches, because I have knit herringbone stitch. I'm very familiar with this stitch, and when you showed us the 2-color herringbone, I was sitting there going like, what is that even possible?
How?
Like how?
And I think if you know the stitch well, the thing, let's also go into a little bit about the herringbone stitch since we already started. I think the part of it is that the traditional herringbone stitch, you do have to use a relatively thin yarn with a very big needle. Yes. So then it will still be drapey. And if you flip it over and it's kind of stiff, it's not a fabric that is often used in garments. I think most people would be making a hat. Mm-hmm. Or maybe a scarf with, let's say, DK weight or even sport weight yarn to give it some drape. But I thought, okay, if we combine that with a very thin, fluffy yarn, it is not going to add that much bulk, but we're still going to get a visual effect. So I thought, okay, then I could try, and especially, that if we can mix the bases and the colors and textures, that would be fun, because otherwise it's just one big piece of fabric that is sort of a lateral knitted piece of fabric. But now we can get, you can do different colors. You can even do a fade with your second color or your main color if you're really like into color combinations and going into crazy colors. So I thought that might be fun.
And it was so fun. I remember when we were, because you needed lots of colors to look at, play with, put together. And so whenever I collaborate with the designers, I don't want to deprive them of the yarn. So you had already chosen your main yarn, which was Derrière Natura Cyrano. Mm-hmm. So it's like this woolen spun yarn. So the main color is this like ecru color. And she was using La Bien-Aimée Kumo for the stranded part. And so we just sent, like, I remember we went back and forth, and you a ton of swatches.
Yeah.
And for me as a process knitter, when I saw that, I was just like, oh, this is exciting. And we seriously had such a great choice of colors to pick. But I absolutely adore the 2 colors that you landed on. Yeah.
And I'm really inspired by what you said. I think in one of our earlier meetings that you said, a lot of people believe that Asians can't really wear yellow. I have almost never worn yellow in my life, to be fair. Probably because of that reason, the undertone of your skin and your hair color won't work and stuff like that. But I must admit, now I'm a lot more convinced that, some sort of, some yellows might actually work, and or maybe a grello, or in this case, a pink and yellow combination would work too. So it really opens up. So you see me, I'm wearing black all the time. So this project also really helps me in that sense to really open up into a more
well, that goes straight to my heart, because this is a topic that is really a deep topic for me. I used to be like you and wear all black all the time. And I just started, like, right before the pandemic started wearing all this color. And it really kind of changed my mood and changed the way I saw things. But yeah, we can I might have to have you back on again, Vaelrie, so that we can talk about this yellow color in another episode, because that one will take up a whole episode all by itself.
Yeah, I'm actually doing just a quick sneak peek. I'm actually doing a color combination presentation with John Urban Textile in the virtual knit night sometime later in July. So yeah, maybe after this episode is aired, people can also go onto YouTube, and that will be available.
We'll definitely get those details so that we can include the information, because I know people watching this will want to see the replay or either join in. So
yeah.
All right, so you talked to us about the stranded herringbone stitch. Could you tell us what's the
okay, sure. Actually, that's a play of words or a pun almost. Again, because I speak Mandarin, but Cantonese is more like the Chinese that I speak. And so herringbone it's herring, right? The herring is a fish.
Yes.
So the Cantonese word for a fish is yu. And then usually people during Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year, they would use that word, just play of words. They make dishes with fish to sort of, it's a symbol for leftovers, or there is something remaining at the end of the year, which means that's good, right? You're not really short of food, but you have extra. Yeah. And that word is yu. So it's already sounded very much like what we have now. And I thought, okay, leftover, that doesn't sound really nice. I don't really like that. People call me, in my 30s, not married, the leftovers lady. So let's not use leftovers.
Yeah.
But I guess the idea is to have surplus, right? So that would be abundance. You have enough during the year. And I think during my journey of trying to recover from the stress and to live a new life, to find a new identity, in the last couple of years, I've been trying to just believe that we are not in a zero-sum game, that there is enough for everybody. We are all good enough. That's sort of an idea. So I was just playing with words, and the word for abundance is for you. So there we go. The you is actually the second word from there, which means abundance. And I think it means something similar in Japanese too, because they also have the Chinese characters that they use. And I thought that would be a good idea, because then maybe those who can read Chinese characters in Korea, they will also understand that. And
definitely
it means something beautiful, I think.
It means something beautiful. And I've been out on tour already with the vest, and a few Asians have come up and said, oh, I know the significance, I love the name of this vest, so they picked up on that, Vaelrie.
Yeah.
All right, so I wanted to ask you if you could knit one design from neons and neutrals for yourself. Which one would it be?
That is definitely gonna be Micah's Vaelrie. Yeah, I'm probably not pronouncing it as well as she can.
You'll have to watch our episode with Micah. She gave us a good lesson on it.
Yeah, because the R is a little bit difficult, so it's Vaelrie, something like that. But anyway, it means vertebrate, I guess, from my very limited Dutch knowledge. I think that's one of those designs, a circular yoke that would suit my simple style, something that you can just put on top. Maybe not in that kind of colors, but something more neutral would be neutral my choice.
With a little neon pop.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe neon trim, on the neck, or just the bottom of something like that. Yeah, I do very much like not even low contrast. You have high contrast and low contrast, and I'm happy to have no contrast at all. So that would be me, like no contrast color work with just a trim, let's say on the cuffs or on
I would love to see that super neutral version. That sounds lovely. Are you working on anything special right now? Do you have anything on the needles that you can share with us, or maybe sneak peek a new design?
Well, I haven't been really knitting that much because, again, ADHD, your interests just, they come and go. But this is my swatch for my own. I'm going to make a cardigan. It's still going to be the same stitch pattern. It's a brown sort of woolen spun yarn with a bling bling moss green sort of
sparkle mohair. Is it mohair?
It's brushed alpaca, so it's even fluffier. So it's going to be, again, like I said, it's a very low contrast, sort of very subtle palette. So that's something that I'm going to work on, and hopefully I can bring to Yarndale when I visit and give a workshop there later this year. Fantastic. And this is something else that, still secret at the moment, but the pattern will come out later this year in the autumn, I think. Again, one of those things that I make, knitted fabric that doesn't, doesn't really look knitted.
It's so beautiful. I'm so fascinated. I can't wait to see more about that.
It feels kind of interesting too.
I can tell that it's very textural.
Yeah. So that's something, that's something I've been working on.
I'm very curious about that Surrey alpaca bling bling that you just showed us. What is the brand of that yarn?
That's just a Camarose. Yeah.
Oh, it's Camarose.
Camarose, yeah. I actually took a few pictures at Stephen and Penelope last time, putting together some of the cumbles, and maybe I can share a picture with you later, so you can share with your followers. Yeah, thank you.
All right, one last question. Where can we find you on the internet? Where can people follow you and follow your work?
I'm Joyance Fiber Arts on Instagram. And there is also a joyansfiberarts.com. Fiber is spelled with an R-E instead of E-R.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's basically it. I'm not very active online currently, but I try to, pop in and say hi once in a while. So yeah, that would be the best place to find me.
Thank you for joining us. This was super fun to catch up and chat with you and get to know you a little bit better. Now I'm going to bring forward Caitlyn. Hold on, here we go. Hi, Caitlyn.
Hi, Aimée. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
So Caitlyn Turowski is the designer of Confluence from my book, Neons and Neutrals. And I will definitely be flashing up the design on my second screen here in a little bit when we start talking about it. But Caitlyn, I would love it if you would introduce yourself and tell everyone about yourself, where you're from, and then maybe tell us about your knitting story.
Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlyn. I am from Pittsburgh, and that is where I currently reside. And my family also lives in Pittsburgh with me. I'm super close with them and pretty much spend all of my free time with my family. And my knitting story is also family related. My grandmother actually taught me to knit in childhood. My grandmother was a big crocheter. And so she taught me to knit and crochet, but she definitely favored crocheting more. And I gravitated towards knitting more. So we used to sit in the kitchen together around the kitchen table, and she would crochet and I would knit, and we would watch The Price is Right.
I love that.
So that's a little bit about me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. How long have you been designing knitwear?
So I just started designing at the end of 2020. Like a lot of people, my job was affected by the pandemic. And so I found myself with a lot more free time, and I decided to kind of just take the leap of faith and try to design some things. I've always been very into fashion and design and had thought about pursuing that for a career, but decided to go in a different direction. And so when I found myself in the position that I was like, you know what, I'm going to make the most of it and let's see what happens. So I published my first design. It was a hat at the end of 2020. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Wow, that's so great. So I follow you on social media, and your handle is Wanderlust Knitter. Can you tell us about that? Why do you call yourself that?
So at the time, whenever I started my Instagram account, I was living in upstate New York, and I love to travel. I love to be outside in nature, and that's kind of like what Wanderlust is all about. And so a lot of my photos you will see of like me wearing my knitwear hiking, or when I'm on vacation. I love taking my knits with me and I wear them all the time. And so yeah, I just kind of felt like that was the perfect name for the aesthetic that I was going for.
I love that. I love that. Do you draw a lot of inspiration from your travels in nature and things like that?
Definitely. I would say that's my number one source for my inspiration is when I travel someplace and learn about the different sites and attractions and everything. I usually come home and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to design something with that in mind. So
Well, let's talk about your design Confluence from Neons and
Yes.
Neutrals. Let me just pop this photo up here. Here we go. So your sweater that you designed for Neons and Neutrals for me was, when I was going through the submissions, I immediately put it over into the approved before I even read your submission, because literally I think I had 2 people who submitted using marling. And I knew I needed to have a marled garment or accessory in the book. And so when I saw yours, I was like, yes, a marled circular yoke sweater, boom, it's in. And then I started digging deeper into your design submission, and I was super excited to work with you. I loved everything that you wrote in there. And I wanted you to talk to us about Confluence. How did you come up with the design, and where does the name of the pattern, the inspiration, come from?
Sure. So I actually remember you telling me that there were only 2 marled designs, and I kind of like laughed because I was like, how is that possible? But really, really glad, and I was so excited to obviously be chosen. I mean, such an honor. So the inspiration for my design came from my hometown in the city that I currently reside, which is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so if anyone knows anything about Pittsburgh, the Point, which is the point of the city, also known as Point State Park, it is a confluence of 3 rivers. So it's the Monongahela and the Allegheny coming together to form the Ohio River, which then feeds to the Mississippi. So I knew I wanted, this was actually my first published design, and I knew I wanted my hometown to be a part of it. So the 3 stripes on the sleeve cuff are representative of the 3 rivers.
Let me stop sharing so you can hold up your sleeve and show everyone your gorgeous sleeve. Oh, okay, nice. So that represents the 3 rivers.
Correct. And also I kind of drew the inspiration for what I wanted the cuff to look like from retro tube socks, if you remember from like the 80s.
80s child right here. I had those socks.
Yes. So, which are actually making a huge comeback, and I love wearing my tube socks. But so that was kind of the inspiration for what I wanted the cuff of the sleeve to look. And then, as you can see, the collar here also kind of has one stripe to kind of like pull it all together. And I just knew that, and I did put this in my design submission, I just knew I wanted this sweater to be something that was super wearable and also relatively easy for any skill level of knitter to knit. I think that it would be a great first sweater for beginners, as well as something that is, fun for advanced knitters because, of the cool fabric that you get whenever you're marling yarns together. And it's just so fun to play with that. So,
tell us about the yarns that you used in your version you're wearing right now.
Sure. So I decided to go with this color combo because I kind of wanted to match the book.
I love that. Oh, that's so cute.
So these yarns are actually from the Lamb Kid and Diamond Lane, which is Sarah Diamond, if you follow her on Instagram. And so the mohair color is called Siren, and it's almost like this like really super deep, rich red that almost like has like a brown undertone to it. And then the hot pink is called Pop Rocks, and that is on her base Kiddo. And honestly, Pop Rocks is like one of my favorite colors.
That's one of her iconic colors. I love.
Yes, it really is
for that.
Yeah.
So I have another version. So the version in the book was the one I flashed up on the screen, and it's back here on the mannequin. But then we have a second version here that we pulled this palette together using my 2 favorite colors, yellow and pink. But this is from a maker called Earl Grey Fibers. And I really flashed upon her speckled colorway that we used here. And when I was looking at your design, I was like, we can totally use speckled yarns for this design, but you have to be very intentional of where you put the speckles. And so when I tell people, I was like, either choose that the fingering yarn is speckled and the mohair is solid, or choose that the mohair is solid and the fingering yarn speckled, because if we did speckles on both yarns, it would just be like all over the place. And then it would not be that easy to wear sweater. That was the intention of the design. And so I really loved how this design also, your yoke is really, talk to us about the construction too, because it's just not a plain circular yoke. There's other stuff going on down here as well.
Right. So, I find sometimes that circular yokes can be a little bit tricky to wear as far as fit goes. So you will notice, I don't know if you can like see, but you definitely could see in that yellow one that you held up. So the design is circular, but then before you split for the sleeves, you do some raglan shaping onto the arms just to ensure a better fit of the yoke of the sweater. And I just think that it makes it more comfortable to wear as well.
Yeah, it really does. I struggle with just plain circular yoke sweaters because they always just go straight into my armpit. I'm really busty and I have a very wide back. This made it so that I could customize the depth so that when I wear it, it just fits perfectly and I don't have that sweater up in my armpits, which is like the one thing I can't handle.
Right. I agree with you. I don't like that feeling either. So doing the raglan shaping before the split of the sleeves helps alleviate that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was such a great little design feature and I love that. I love it. And
Thank you.
It's nice for beginner knitters too to kind of experience both of those because it's either circular yoke or raglan. And here they get to do it, both of them. So that's really fun. So
yes.
Yeah. Lovely design. We love Confluence so much.
Thank you, Aimée.
We made some fun swatches because I want to make a second one. I brought these here. I want to make like a purpley and like
I loved that one. Yeah, I love that one.
And just for fun, we reversed the colors. So we used a yellow fingering with the
that's beautiful
mohair. So in person, it works really well, but you can, as you can see on screen, it's a little muted. This could be actually a really nice muted Confluence for people who don't want contrast, but this is definitely going to happen right here. Right?
I love that purple. That's so good. What yarns are in that purple sample, if you don't mind me asking?
It's the same that you used for the original. So Twist Nouveau.
Lovely.
And Goldenrod. So I didn't use Yellow Brick Road. I used Goldenrod on mohair silk. So
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yes. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, so we've covered almost all of my questions here now. If you were to knit one design from Neons and Neutrals, which one would it be?
I thought about this and I'm like kind of like all of them, but I guess if I had to pick one, I just think that Layla's cardigan that she designed is just stunning. The braided detail on that is, it's just so gorgeous. And I have seen some online that people have been knitting. And I think that she even posted some swatches of like the different colors that you can do for like the braided pieces. And like that to me was so inspiring to see like all the color combinations and the like bases that you can combine. You can either do it like really chunky or use all lace weight. And I thought that her cardigan was like, it was a showstopper. So probably that one.
Well, I would love to see your version of Zalmai. I think that would be so fun. The second version, one of ours, I just use stash yarn for the chunky stitch. So everyone's got a ton of yarn in their stash, go in there and give it some love and grab it and pull it on. Let's do this. Let's cast on.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask if you've got anything special on the needles that you can sneak peek us, like any new designs or anything, or if you're just knitting for yourself, just share with us what you're knitting.
Well, I always have a design on the needles, Aimée. So
that's
awesome. So I actually next week, a week from tomorrow, so May 19th, obviously this is going to air a little bit later, so the pattern will already be out, but let me grab it here because I love pink and I love fluff. So this is going to be my big fluff pullover.
Look at those sleeves. I love it.
Right? It's so fun and fluffy and lightweight. So that is what I'm currently working on. I cast on another one and I'm going to do it in like an ombre fade. So yeah, so I'm
Ooh.
really excited about that. But yeah, that's
yarn did
my
you
latest
use?
design.
What yarn did you use? Because it looks fluffy.
Yeah, it is. So I used Diamond Lane Birdie, which is a furry alpaca, and you hold 3 strands of it together on size 13 needles. Yeah.
That's lush.
Nice.
On
13. Whoa.
yeah. And so just super fluffy and just it's awesome.
Big fan. I'm a big fan, and I love that pink too. It's so
Me too.
cute. It's so cute.
It's like cotton candy.
Oh, is that the name of the color?
No, the name of the color is taffy, but it's also like taffy.
Well, yeah, it's in the family of cotton candy. So where can everyone find you on the internet, and how can we follow your work?
So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all under Wanderlust Knitter. I also have a website, wanderlustknitter.com. And yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm pretty active on social media. So if you
Yeah.
follow me, you know I post pretty regularly and share little glimpses into what I'm doing and where I'm traveling to and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, I follow you, and I love seeing what you're up to. It's really fun. I hope that our paths will cross someday. But yeah, that will be.
I think they will. I think they will.
I think so too. I think so too. Well, thank you so much, Caitlyn. That was so much fun. Now we're gonna bring forward our special guests. We've got test knitters Marilyn and Tanya here, and let's bring up Marilyn. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi.
And we'll bring up Tanya. Hi, Tanya.
Hi.
I'm going to pass the mic over to Julia. Oh, we need to work on this. Look, I need to
Yeah,
go
we
like this,
should.
and then you need to grab something on the other side. And then all right,
Hi.
we'll up in the next
Live from the La
video.
Bien-Aimée atelier in Paris. Not live, but you know what I mean. Hi, Tanya and Marilyn.
Hi, Julia.
I'm really excited to talk to you both. So I'm gonna start with Tanya. You tested or I don't know if I should say you or you, for Vaelrie. So could you please introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from and how you started knitting.
Well, my name is Tanya, and I grew up in Texas. You might be able to tell my accent, but I'm living in Ohio now with my family. I have four kids and a husband and a kitty cat.
Full house.
But I have knitted and crocheted, it seems like all my life. I was probably about 10 years old when I started crocheting. And
oh, wow.
so, and I learned to knit in high school, I think.
So lifelong crafter.
Yeah. I love it. I like to keep my hands busy, but maybe I can sit on the couch.
Did you learn to knit at school, or did someone teach you to knit?
Well, when I was 10, I was in a campfire girl group, and my mom had signed us all up to do a craft fair to earn money to go on a trip together. And so she showed us how to make these little, the curly Q with the tail along a bookmark. And that was what we were supposed to make for the craft fair. And I was hooked. I loved it. And so she showed me a few things. She's not so much of a crocheter, but that's what I liked. And she said that she had tried to teach me to knit, but I didn't take to it for some reason. I don't know if I believe her, but but when I was in high school, my girlfriend wanted to know how to crochet, and I wanted to know how to knit. So we taught each other, and so it's been almost 30 years, I guess, now since.
Oh, I love that.
And so how did you become a test knitter?
Well, I started out, I think just a couple years back. I had become friends with one of my crochet friends designers, and she had some knitting patterns come out, and I tested for her, and I really liked it. And so last summer, I had tested a few patterns along, the last few years. But then last summer, I stumbled on Yarn Pond, and I love it. It gives you, like, it matches you up with designers and test knitters, and it gives you a dashboard so you can sign up for several at a time. And I was going through kind of a little bit of a hard time, and it gave me motivation, and I liked doing it. So I just kept doing it, and I probably tested maybe 20 patterns, from last summer through the end of the year.
Oh, that's awesome. I've never heard of Yarn Pond. I'm definitely writing it down and putting it in the links
And we're gonna
below,
check it
because
out
I'm
right after
sure,
this episode.
yeah, I'm sure people will be really interested. Because one of
loved
the
it.
questions we usually get is, how can I become a test knitter? You guys talk about all these awesome patterns, and I'd love to, know about them beforehand and everything. So I'm sure people are really interested.
And it's a really nice program because it gives you a little dashboard so you can organize it by your due dates, and it gives you what size you're making so you can keep that organized. It has a link to a chat room for that. I mean, it is fantastic. I love it.
Super.
I'll have to check
Absolutely writing it down and checking it out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So is that how you found the test for Vaelrie?
Yeah, I loved the vest that she showed, and I think my size was already taken by the time I saw it, but my daughter is teeny tiny, and so she's a teenager, and so I asked her, I said, "Oh, do you like this vest? Because I could sign up to make it for you." And she really liked that, and so she asked me to please sign up for making her that vest.
That's so awesome. When we did the pop-up in Paris a few weeks ago, actually, like, a lot of younger people, or even moms came with their daughters. A lot of them tried it on. I was really surprised to see how many younger people were really attracted to that pattern. I mean, older as well, like all the ages. But, for me, I didn't think it would be something teenagers would be into, and they really, really were.
Yeah.
You remember, Aimée, we took so many pictures of people trying you on, so many, and younger people. And I'm really not surprised now to know that your daughter really loves it, because we absolutely saw that at the pop-up. And so
she really likes it.
Yeah. And so what yarn did you use for your test of
For
you?
mine, I used, okay, so I'm a big, I like going to the thrift shops, and
Sure.
I always find something interesting. And so I had found this New Zealand yarn. I was trying to see if I could go back to the name. And then I didn't have any mohair at the time. And so I had gone to the yarn store, and my daughter was very specific what color she wanted to go with. So, and I think she had asked for a very dark green, and they didn't have it. And I was, what's going to happen here? But she picked this, it's, I've got it right here. It's kind of a lighter, I don't know.
Yeah,
if you
hold it up for us so that we can see it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
And
Oh.
it's so cute. I love the design. It is so pretty. And she looks so sweet wearing it. I love it. Which, I mean, she's a teenager. It doesn't always happen. So
I'm just impressed that your teenager will wear that. Mine only wants to wear black and like sweatpants and sweatshirts. Like that's all.
well, she has a look that she's going for sometimes. So this is her fancy look.
I love it.
The yarn, let's see, the mohair was Barocco Ariel.
Okay.
I think is how you say it. And then the other one that I thrifted was called Naturally Yarns Naturel from New
Okay.
Zealand, I think it says. But
Awesome. I love that you thrifted yarn
Yes.
for this
Yeah.
project. It's kind of in the vein of the book. I want people to kind of go into their stash and just try to find what yarn they have. There's so many beautiful yarns out there that will work for all of these patterns. That's lovely.
And if you don't have like the right yarn, put two yarns together and try to make that
yeah,
weight.
Yeah.
that's what I like doing.
That's super. And so what have you been knitting recently? Is there anything you want to show us, or you can
Well,
show us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
what
gonna
I'm
ask about your
Yeah.
sweater.
my top, I tested this a couple months back, and it is so cute. I love it.
Is it knitting
and
or crochet?
yeah, it's knitting, and it's got like a circular yoke.
It's lovely.
And I think she just released the pattern actually on Friday. It's called Thallow, and her name is Sarah from Subito Farms, I think is
Okay.
what they.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
include all that in the comments below.
And I love it. And I used a gradient, so it just,
How cute.
Wow.
Beautiful. Nicely done.
thank you.
I can hear your cat.
Yeah. My husband just came through a few minutes ago, and he is her person. So she has to make sure he knows that she's there.
Well, thank you so much, Tanya, for joining us and for sharing your knitting with us.
Thank you.
And hi, Marilyn. Super nice to
Hi.
meet you.
Pleased to meet everyone. Thank you.
And could you please introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and when you learned to knit?
Yes, I'm Marilyn Horn. I'm from New Jersey, always. I guess I have been knitting maybe 30 years. I started out long before that. I have two daughters. They have blended families, so we have 12 grandchildren and 4 great grandchildren with 2 on the way. So I've been busy knitting for them, but I started out probably 50 years ago crocheting little ponchos for my 2 daughters. I always had some kind of craft. I knew I always wanted to do that. Maybe 30 years ago, I also had a needlepoint shop. And we had that for several years. So I needlepointed like crazy, as quick as I do my knitting right now. So probably about 30 years ago, we didn't have any knitting. I didn't know how to knit when we had the needlepoint shop. After we sold it, I took up knitting. I've been knitting ever since, and I love it.
Lovely. And so how did you become a test knitter?
I was knitting patterns, I think probably goes back about 6 years ago. The first thing I test knitted was for Jill Zielinski, Knitterella. She posted something about, I was knitting some of her patterns. I loved the way she wrote, and she put a post out looking for test knitters. So I sent her a message, and that was the beginning of my test knitting. And I really only did it for Jill until Caitlyn's patterns came out. And that it's been, I do test knit for both of them, and they are both equally wonderful to work with. And they're both precise, they're perfectionists. Nothing is going out where you question. I love working with them.
Amazing. So let's talk about your Confluence, because we can see a little bit of
Yes,
it.
I'm going to stand up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Here are my gorgeous sleeves. I don't know if you can see them.
Yes,
also.
absolutely.
So the yarn I used, I knew I wanted to support the local yarn store, which is Do You Knit. That's our local yarn store. So I went in knowing that I wanted to buy Lamb and Kids mohair in Pop Rocks. And we looked to see what would go with it. And she had just gotten, I don't know if you could really see up close, it's a speckled yarn by Moondrake, which is as soft as could be, but it was a yarn specifically made for them, and it's called Cashemaya.
Ooh, I'm writing
And
that
it
down.
is, it's a superwash, but it's 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon.
Ooh, lovely.
So the mixture with this and Pop Rocks was,
Obsessed.
it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And when you look at it, really, you see, you
Look
don't
at
see
that.
speckle. Very
Yeah.
rarely do you see speckle. It's just the pink and white. I love it. I love how it feels. It's so comfortable. And I love the pattern.
I love
Yes.
it. It's so fresh having the white background. It's like you've got this canvas for
Yes.
any color of mohair. And I just noticed
Exactly.
that your nails match your knitting. Beautiful.
It's true that that light color is going to make any color of mohair pop against it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Love. That's
Thank
a
you.
beautiful, beautiful sweater. And so what have you been knitting recently? Is there anything you want to share?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Caitlin, she just showed you hers in pink, and I will show you mine.
Ooh, and does it have short sleeves? Cute.
This is a little, almost like Caitlin's length. This is the big fluff pullover that Caitlin just showed you in pink.
Beautiful.
It is light and airy and comfortable that you never want to take it off. And I just finished, give me 1 second.
We want to see. We want to see all the.
Absolutely. We want to see all the knitting.
We want to see it all.
I just finished yesterday. This pattern, well, since you're airing in July, this pattern doesn't come out until the end of the month. And it is for Knitterella. It's for Jill. And it's a Bay Breeze tee.
Oh, what a pretty yoke.
Right?
Wow.
The yoke is everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is done. And it's in her yarn, North Bay Fiber Elemental Fingering.
Lovely.
That's so pretty.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Marilyn, for showing us your
Thank you
beautiful
for
knitting.
inviting me.
I'm going to bring you forward. I'm going to bring the designers forward because I have 2 last questions to ask everybody. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start with Marilyn. Marilyn, you will respond, and then we'll go in a circle. Go Marilyn, Tanya, Caitlin, and Vaelrie. So I always end my episode with 2 funny questions. If you were a stitch or knitting technique, which one would you be? You get to go first, Marilyn.
Oh boy. Oh my goodness. Mosaic knitting.
Nice. Nice.
love
We
doing
haven't
that.
had that one yet. That's great. Okay, Tanya.
I think, well, I don't know if you'd call it a technique, but I think if I was something having to do with yarn, it would be yarn barf because I am a hot mess half the time.
Love that answer. Love it. You can be as vague or as specific as you want. We had one knitter say that she was a central double decrease. That represented her as a knitter, and it's such a funny story behind that. So I love that. Okay, Caitlin, your turn.
I mean, this is really hard.
Surprised you guys with these 2 last questions.
Yeah, you did. And I'm trying to think, I'm like, what would I be? I think I would have to say that I would just be stockinette stitch because it's reliable.
Love that. How do you feel about reverse stockinette?
You know,
Good answer. We accept all answers. All answers are right. All right, Vaelrie, your turn.
Lucky that I'm last. I think I'll be neat weave, if you know that technique from machine knitting. If you don't, the outside could look something like this. It doesn't look like knitted, but if you flip it onto the inside, it's just very standard stockinette.
Oh my.
So I think it's something like me. If you look on the outside, you can't figure out who I am, because I'm a mix of everything from my background to what I did for what I'm doing. But on the inside, I just want a very simple me. So
That's lovely.
I think that's a good representation of me.
I love that. That is. Could you say the stitch again? What was the
Knit
name?
It's knit, so knitting, and weave,
Knit weave.
like weaving. Yeah, it's a machine
Okay.
knitting technique. And the sweater
Look it
I
up
did
and
by
we'll
hand.
We'll include it in the notes, because
Yeah.
now I'm obsessed too. I have to go look it up because I've been
Yeah, and that sweater, you can find it in Pom Pom issue number 39.
Oh,
Yeah, that's by me.
okay.
So yeah, or you can
I
go
thought
on
it
to
looked
my
familiar. I
Ravelry
was
page.
like, what is it? Yeah, very
Yeah,
cool.
you might have seen it before. Yeah.
Okay, second question. And we're going to start with Marilyn. What is your stitch arch nemesis or the villain of your knitting story? So just give you an example. For me, what did I say? I said recently that I don't like to do lace patterns on the purl side. Like I need that rest row when I'm knitting lace. You know, you knit it on the right side, you come back and purl on the other side. That's how I like to do lace. So for me, having lace motif on both sides of my knitting is my
Mm-mm.
All right, Marilyn, you get to go first.
Color work on the purl side.
Yep.
No, I will
Agree.
suffer with it occasionally, but it is definitely not my go-to.
I hear you. Tanya?
I'm trying to think. I like learning, so I don't like to say that they'll get me, but I don't like using stitch markers. It always seems like they say, oh, use your stitch markers to make your counts nice, and they always mess me up, so I take them out every time.
Okay.
I don't think I've gotten through one row with it with them in.
All right, Caitlin, what about you?
So I have a knitting machine, just like a very basic one. And one time I tried to use a garter bar on it to create garter stitch. Never again.
Yeah.
So that was it for me. It took me trying to do that once. I did it. I finished the project and I was like, I'm never going to use this ever again. It was so fiddly and just awful to use. And Valerie, you're laughing, so I'm assuming you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
She knows. She knows.
Yeah.
Okay, Valerie.
But I'm also laughing because I was thinking I would rather do garter stitch on the knitting machine, which is very fiddly, as annoying as it is, than to knit garter stitch by hand, because it's just super boring to do knit stitch all the time. And I really hate the look of the purl bumps. So if they're on both sides, it's just, I just can't do it. There is only one occasion that I would do garter stitch is when I do stranded garter stitch.
Oh my goodness.
Then I get to play with different colors and do some stranding. And then if you strand and you see the strand in the front, on the front and the back of the work, could be of different colors. And so that's way more interesting than garter stitch. But I totally feel you, Caitlin. That's why my garter bar is still in the storage.
I'm like you, Caitlin. My knitting machine came with one. I tried it the first time and I literally was like, nope.
Yeah.
Back in the box, because it is very fiddly.
I think there's more swearing than stitches.
For sure. Well, thank you to my guests, Valerie Ng and Caitlyn Turowski, Marilyn and Tanya. It was super fun chatting with you today. This is Aimée's Knit Lab, and these are conversations with designers and test knitters from Neons and Neutrals. We will be airing this on YouTube very soon. So I just want to say thank you and have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.